What's up, guys? Kool-Aid here. Today we're going to be talking all about Nader, another female merc who loves to blow the hell out of stuff. Now, Nader does have a pretty average speed and health rating. She does have 110 hit points, which definitely doesn't make her as squishy as somebody like Aura or, some of the lower hit point mercs, but she's definitely not a tank by any means either. Now, that separation between, you look at 110 hit points and you compare that to somebody like Proxy who has 90 or somebody like Aura that has 80, and you think 30 or 20 might not be a big difference, but just think about how many times you've actually survived a fight with less than 10 hit points or less than 20 hit points. And, that's the difference between a lot of kills and a lot of deaths. So 110 is actually a pretty decent number for a merc like Nader, who is actually somewhat fast as well. She does have a 420 speed rating. Again, that's not top of the line by any means, but it's definitely not like you're chugging around with Rhino out there either. So it's a pretty good mix of health and speed. Now, to talk about Nader's primary weapons, she doesn't have a huge variety. She only has submachine guns available to her. And the first one we're going to talk about is the Hawk Fur. Now, this is the one that's going to do low damage at 9 damage per shot, but it does fire at that 812 rounds per minute with a big 55-round magazine. And like I said in the proxy video, this is a great gun, a great submachine gun to start off with because it is very forgiving with that magazine and that rate of fire. It's a good gun to start training yourself to go for headshots with. Also, it's great if you're somebody that likes to really jump around, really like to jump off obstacles and move around a lot while firing at somebody because, again, because of that high magazine capacity. Now, the other two SMGs are going to be very similar. We have the SMG 9 and the Krotzny. They're both going to do 12 damage per shot. They're both going to have a magazine size of 40 rounds per. Now, the Krotzny is going to fire a little bit faster at 650 rounds per minute, where the SMG 9 is at 620 rounds per minute. And the SMG 9 is going to reload slightly faster at 1.7 seconds, where the Krotzny is at 1.9 seconds. Both of those, however, are pretty negligible, and they're both really good guns. They're very, very similar. Now, we do have some range numbers as well, and the Krotzny appears to have its damage drop off at a longer range, which is a good thing. So just going by pure stats, I would give the edge to the Krotzny. However, again, we do not have the recoil pattern or the spread of these weapons, and through some very, very light testing, it does definitely appear that the Krotzny does have a little more spread, a little more recoil than the SMG 9. So it's going to be a little bit less accurate. So it's kind of a toss-up. Do you want that higher rate of fire with a little better damage drop-off, or do you want the more accuracy of the SMG 9? Now, later down the road, when they include all the weapon stats and they're not making as many changes as they are now, I might come back and compare these two weapons again. But right now, I think it's pretty much a toss-up, and you're probably going to choose between the two depending on what loadout cards you actually have. As far as secondary weapons or sidearms go, she does have three very similar weapons, or I should say three semi-automatic pistols. One of them does work quite differently, and that's the Calden. It's basically a 1911 clone, and that's going to do 19 damage per shot, so it hits pretty hard. It's only going to fire at 360 rounds per minute, however, and it's only going to have a magazine capacity of 7 rounds. This is probably my least favorite of the sidearms for Nader. And then she has the M9 and the Cellstat 40, and these are both going to do 15 damage per shot. They're both going to fire at around 450 rounds per minute. However, the M9 is going to have 15 rounds per mag, where the Cellstat is going to have 12 rounds per mag, but the Cellstat does have the better damage drop-off numbers. It's going to hold its damage a little bit further, so it has that going for it. Personally, I think the M9 is probably my favorite, although I haven't used these guns a lot, simply because on Nader, your sidearm is pretty much your third option. It goes your primary, then your nade launcher, and then your sidearm. So you're not using your sidearm nearly as much on Nader as you are on probably a lot of the other classes. So I wouldn't use it as much of a factor when picking your loadout card. Now, to touch upon Nader's unique abilities, she has a nade launcher, of course, and martyrdom. Now, we'll go over the nade launcher a little more in depth in the tips portion of the video, but just to give a brief overview, you have a maximum capacity of 5 grenades, and each grenade will recharge after about 7 seconds. seconds. Now the grenade launcher does 90 damage on direct impact, so you can one-shot a lot of classes with it. However, you're not going to really want to rely on that. It's going to be more of a splash damage tool, and again, we'll talk about this more in the tips portion of the video, but it's a very, very powerful tool, and it's very, very versatile. As far as martyrdom goes, you know, this is just kind of something thrown in. It's not really a reason why you'd pick Nader, but it is kind of funny, and you'll net yourself a few free kills every round because of it. And also martyrdom, I've seen this in other games such as Call of Duty. It's a little bit different in this game. You know, in those games, or at least the ones that I've played that have had it, it's automatic. As soon as you die, the grenade will come up and blow up. In this game, you can actually trigger it when you want, as long as you're not finished off. So it makes it a little bit more useful. Usually cause a little bit of grief, get some grief in chat because of it. But it's just kind of there, and like I said, it's not really huge, but it's going to net you a few free kills in each round. Now, as far as suggested loadouts go for Nader, there's not a lot that I absolutely love. The CR72 standard is going to give us that Krotzny. It's going to give us double time, the augment that we like so much, which allows you to reload while sprinting. However, it does have the Calden as a sidearm, and it has focus, reduces the flinch while hitting iron sight or scoped. Not a big deal for Nader. And then it has cool, which increases the time it takes mounted machine guns to overheat by 50%. So not much else to like on that card besides double time. Now, if you're not worried about double time as much, you can go down to the CR81 Superb Operative, and that's going to give you bigger blast, which is a 10% increase to your blast radius to AoE weapons. So your nade launcher is going to be a little bit more effective, and that has the Cell Stat 40, which is definitely an upgrade from the Calden, in my opinion. Or if you do prefer the SMG9, the SM41 Standard Operative is going to have that bigger blast perk, or bigger blast augment. It does come with the M9 as well, which is my preferred sidearm. However, there is no loadout card with the SMG9 that has double time on it, which is kind of a downer. That might be your deciding factor to actually go with the Krotzny. But overall, you know, not any really great loadout cards out there for Nader. Or I should say any that really jump out at me. But anyways, to go over some tips for Nader, and this is going to be all about the grenade launcher because that's what makes Nader who she is. That's what makes her a unique merc. There's the obvious use for the grenade launcher, which is to kill people, explode people, do damage to people, etc. But there's many more uses for it than that. It's actually very versatile. Probably one of the most versatile abilities of any merc in the game. The first way I'm going to tell you to use it, and a lot of people don't think of this, but it's very obvious, is you can take out EVs with it. Now, it's not going to be like a Skyhammer airdrop or anything like that, but if you see an EV sitting there at like 30%, 40%, something like that, and I don't have the exact damage numbers, what it does to an EV, but if you have a full cache of grenades on hand, 5 grenades in your launcher, you can finish it off without a problem. And I bring this up, it seems very obvious, but a lot of people don't seem to do this. Also, it's a great territory control / suppression tool, and I'll give you guys an example. Say you're on train or train yard and you're at the end where you got to deliver them EMP devices, your team's pushing forward, you can just kind of launch them in through them doors where you know the enemy's going to be coming out of, and most people will not run through a grenade indicator on the ground. And if they do, you know, maybe even better, because then they're going to take damage on the way out. Now, the best way to do this is not to just launch them all at once. You want to actually use the indicator to your advantage more than the actual explosion itself. So once that first one's about to explode, then you launch another one, and you just keep doing that over and over, and you can hold enemies back for quite some time. It's also great at taking out enemy devices, you know, specifically Aura's healing station or Bushwhacker's turret, without actually even having to face them head on. You just bounce them off a corner, and a lot of the times that's a very effective way to do it. You don't have to burn through ammo that way. Just so many uses for the nade launcher. It's hard to even come up with them all in one little video. So anyways, guys, this is just a few little tips. I have a feeling I'll be doing more on Nader in the future, as I really like playing her. And I know I say that about every merc that I've done a video on so far, and that's probably the reason why I've done these mercs first. But Nader is really, really good, and if you don't have her, if you haven't played her, I suggest trying her out. I think it's kind of hard not to like Nader. But anyways, guys, if you have any more tips, things that I missed, please include that in the comment section. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to y'all later.